claiming that you have facilitated and secured a deal with Iran, a denuclearization agreement with Iran, when you haven't talked to Iran and you've went to the UAE and Saudi Arabia, is like saying, oh, I went to Poland and, Russia is going to finally do a ceasefire. We did it.
Trump finished his week-long trip to the Middle East this morning with deal-making front and center of his agenda. He made one last sales pitch to the region's business leaders, hoping they will invest as much as possible in the U.S. Nancy Cortez covered Trump's visit. She joins us now from Abu Dhabi, capital of the United Arab Emirates. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Nate. The president just departed Abu Dhabi after touting billions of dollars worth of new investments in U.S. companies, especially when it comes to AI, airplanes, and military equipment. He leaves without a breakthrough in the Gaza-Israel conflict, but this was less of a trip focused on regional tension and more of a trip focused on dollars and cents.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, as expected.
Boeing makes the best plane.
The president served as pitchman for U.S. industry this morning as business leaders here in Abu Dhabi did their best to impress.
We're also announcing today our first flight to Charlotte.
Oh, good.
North Carolina.
That's a good place.
This first major foreign trip of Trump's second term was a departure from traditional foreign policy. Instead, it was diplomacy by commerce.
So it's over $200 billion, but 160 in terms of the jets. That's fantastic. 600 billion knowing it will be $1 trillion.
Trump bypassed long-standing regional allies like Israel and Jordan to visit three booming oil and gas-rich Gulf states.
We have a president of the United States doing the selling.
It's hard to know at this point how much of this investment was driven by the salesman-in-chief and how much was already in the works. These quickly growing countries have been aggressively importing American excellence for years. The Cleveland Clinic opened an outpost in Abu Dhabi in 2015, and Disney just announced plans to build a new theme park here.
Fantastic.
Indoors to beat the heat. In all three nations, Trump urged the leaders to go even bigger and buy even more from us.
We're a hot country, just like you're a hot area. I can tell you that our country is hot. It's hot as a pistol. We were not such a hot country 6 months ago. And now I think we're the hottest country, if you want to know the truth.
President Trump is now on his way back to the...
They're not just milking Trump. Trump is milking them as well. It's just direct quid pro quo, corrupt deal making. And the way it's taking place... is happening in the backdrop of a genocide that has escalated as Israel seeks to punish the Palestinian civilian population again and again and again because they feel angry and resentful that Trump even aesthetically sidestepped them to talk to Hamas directly. And here's a good take as well. If democratic elections were held today in Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, they would elect governments that will break off all relations with the genocidal Israeli Zionist entity and vow to destroy it. So the U.S. props up fascist puppets that violently suppress them. That's it. When Iran retaliated against the genocidal Zionist entity, the U.S. NATO-Israeli Empire's Arab Shield was activated, literally shooting down missiles aimed at Israel, risking the lives of their own people. That is how much contempt these fascist puppets have for their own population. They literally shot missiles at the Iranian missiles that fell on top of their own citizens, potentially. And Egypt is a great example of this because they did have elections, and then, lo and behold, a coup took place. That is not true at all. Yeah? Why are these countries ruled by monarchies still? I thought America cared about democracy. You think that's not by design? Why did the Jordanian king train with the British Navy? The king, then why is Israel still geopolitically important to the U.S. Now when all Arab and neighboring countries in the Emmy are U.S. puppets now? Because why would you... Gulf citizens don't care? That's not true. No, that's not true. That's absolutely not true. if you think that Arab citizens are there, if you think that Arab citizens across the board are not are oblivious or careless or don't give a shit, you are delusional, because that is the only reason why the Gulf leadership still maintains this posture towards Palestinians. The only reason why leadership in that region makes it seem as though they care about Palestinians is so that they don't have rebellion, okay? Because the reality of the matter is you have to at least like offer something to your citizens. And the same goes for Turkey as well. Why do you think Erdogan makes it seem as though he is positioned against Israel over and over and over again? The reason why, by the way, I'm Lebanese and half the population was against involvement in the Palestine situation is such a funny thing to mention, because Lebanon was literally packing up pro-Palestinian protesters and putting them in unmarked vans and shit and arresting them. What are you talking about? In many of these countries, like if you have a Palestine flag in Mecca, they will take it away from you. That's in Mecca. That's the heart of Islam, right? I think it's completely ridiculous. Gulf citizens literally can't speak. It's illegal to criticize normalization with Israel in the UAE. Yeah. UAE government intensifies suppression of voices opposing its policies, escalates rights violations. But of course, none of this is ever talked about. Why is none of this ever talked about in the Western media? Just like the same people that constantly talk about like Houthis being backwards and homophobic and having horrifying practices against women and all this shit, they don't have a peep to say about any of the Gulf states because they're aligned with Israel. That's it. And therefore, because of their alignment with Israel, America lets them do whatever the they want. And America gives them a steady flow of weapons that they can inevitably use to suppress their own citizens as well if there is some sort of revolt or rebellion, some sort of coup. A recent opinion poll revealed that 96% of Saudis believe that Arab countries should cut all ties with Israel and protest against the Israeli forced aggression against the Gaza Strip, according to the New York Times. I'm telling you right now, if Gulf nation states, especially ones that have like high population, a high number of people, as opposed to like a tiny population that benefits tremendously from being oil barons with a healthy dose of subsidies and is almost entirely comprised of like voluntary and involuntary slave labor style practices. Like there's a lot of these Gulf countries that just like don't have a lot of people in them and are simply kept up, propped up by immigrant labor, some of which resembles slave labor practices or are directly considered slave labor practices. If those countries had these chatters making up their own stats when the Lebanese population have 79% support for Hamas outright, not to mention ending a genocide in Palestine. Yeah. Dude, if America is like 53% unfavorable to Israel, if you think the countries that are getting bombed by Israel or within proximity of Israel don't have an even more negative view on Israel, you are delusional. It is the very fact that the citizens of these nation states that have this anti-Israel slant, that is the reason why the Gulf leadership has to make it seem as though they're not super pro-Israel. That is the reason. They have to say that. Otherwise, there will be insane protests that even they cannot squash with all of the American weapons that they get and the American training that they get. Where does Qatar fit in? Qatar is, out of all the Gulf states, the only one that has at least a neutral position on Palestinians. They are still, of course, very much in favor of normalizing with Israel, and they have a similar undemocratic structure as well. But having said that, they are at least neutral. And here's what I wanted to talk about. And this is what my fears were, and my greatest fears are being realized in this process. Hamas says Witkoff personally promised to lift the Gaza blockade in exchange for Eden Alexander. The U.S. immediately broke the deal, senior Hamas official Bassem Naim tells Dropsite. They threw it in the trash, and there's been zero progress on a Gaza ceasefire. A senior Hamas official told Dropsite that the group received a direct commitment from Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, that 2 days after the release of U.S. citizen and Israeli soldier Eden Alexander, the Trump administration would compel Israel to lift the Gaza blockade and allow humanitarian aid to enter the territory. Witkoff, according to the official, also promised that Trump would make a public call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and for negotiations aimed at achieving a permanent ceasefire. It was a deal, said Bassem Naim, a member of Hamas's political bureau who has previously engaged in direct talks with U.S. officials. He said the pledge was made by Witkoff himself. In an interview with Dropsite, Naim said the agreement was if we release Alexander, Trump will speak out thanking Hamas for this gesture, obliging Israel on the second day to open the borders and allow aid to come into Gaza. And Trump would call for an immediate ceasefire and to go for negotiations to end the war. He did nothing of this, Naim added. They didn't violate the deal. They threw it in the trash. The White House did not respond to a request for comment. The release of Alexander, who was taken by Palestinian fighters on October 7, 2023 from the Israeli military base where he was stationed, was a significant event. He was the first male soldier freed by Hamas since the war began 19 months ago. Hamas said it freed him as a gesture of goodwill towards Trump because it believed it had received commitment. A commitment Alexander's release would result in the immediate delivery of food, medicine, and fuel into Gaza. On Friday, as Trump wrapped up his tour of Gulf nations, he briefly addressed the Gaza war and the dire humanitarian catastrophe caused by Israel's full-spectrum blockade of Gaza. For 76 days, Israel had banned all food, medicine, water, and fuel from entering Gaza. The siege had plunged the population into a state of forced starvation. Nearly the entire population of Gaza is facing severe levels of food insecurity, and thousands of children are already suffering from acute malnutrition. These numbers are expected to rise dramatically in the coming months if the blockade is not lifted. We're looking at Gaza, and we got to get that taken care of, Trump said at a public event in the UAE. A lot of people are starving. A lot of people. There's a lot of bad things going on. Naim acknowledged Trump's remarks about starvation in Gaza, but pointed out that the day prior, Trump had once again raised the prospect of the U.S. seizing Gaza and saying he'd be proud to take the Palestinian territory and make it just a freedom zone. In February, standing alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, Trump announced that he wanted to transform Gaza into a U.S.-owned Middle East Riviera. You are not dealing with steady, stable politics, said Naim. Trump can say what he wants. We are looking for actions. Now, I want to maintain something here, okay? It's a position that I've had for a long time, okay? Which is that Hamas and Iran, regardless of their domestic affairs, regardless of their worldview or fundamentalist perspectives from time to time, especially with the Iranian leadership, are far more restrained diplomats because they have to be, okay? Because they recognize that their position is lower than dirt in the global eyes, in the global stage. And for this reason, they are always a much better party to negotiate with than Israel. But because America does not give a shit about them due to their position that they will always be dominated, especially Hamas, that will always be dominated by the belligerent occupier Israel, that they don't care. They come in and they say, "Oh yeah, we'll cut a side deal with you," and then they f off. Steve Witkoff did this with the previous ceasefire. I talked about it, and the role that it plays in my assessment of this current ceasefire, or the potential for a ceasefire coming up, when I said they did this one time, they're probably going to do it again. Hamas and all Palestinians across the board are completely alone, okay? They're alone. None of the Gulf leadership cares about their well-being. None of them care enough to stop this genocide. They care about getting good business deals done, okay? Even Iran doesn't care about the Palestinians as much as people seem to think that they do. That's it. And the only other group, the two groups that actually cared, one has had its entire leadership structure decapitated with a ton of civilian deaths accompanied with it, Hezbollah. And the only other group that actually cares in the region and actually does something about it is Yemen, is the Ansar Allah movement, also colloquially known as the Houthis. That's it. Trump's humanitarian plan, both the U.S. and Israel has been pushing plans which would not be linked to any ceasefire to deliver aid in the Gaza Strip. The White House has said it would empower a newly created NGO to formally run the program alongside U.S. security contractors. This proposal for aid distribution involves a system of political vetting and calorie restrictions, and it would require Palestinians to travel long distances to pass extensive security checks to receive meager rations of food. Pre-approved representatives of families in Gaza would be permitted to pick up food supplies once every other week under the plan. While Israeli forces would not distribute the aid, the army would be involved with security. It's literally straight up Auschwitz shit, okay? It's insane. Yes, I know. My Kyle Kalinske interview just dropped. Yes. The UN and dozens of international aid groups working in Gaza have denounced the proposal, saying it would weaponize access to food and other life-sustaining supplies. They have called for an immediate ceasefire followed by unrestricted aid flowing into Gaza. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a new Trump-backed group registered in Switzerland, said this week it had reached an agreement with Israel to begin operating in Gaza by the end of May. Israel's indicated that the aid distribution would be run from southern Gaza near the border with Egypt. UN officials have warned that the plan could be a part of Israel's stated aim of driving hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from northern and central Gaza to the south. On May 4th, the Israeli cabinet approved a plan codenamed Operation Gideon's Chariot that it threatened to implement if Hamas did not capitulate to Israel's demands by the time Trump finished his tour of the Gulf. Its explicit aim would be the conquest of the Gaza Strip, an open-ended occupation enforced by wide-scale attacks and the destruction of Gaza's remaining infrastructure. Palestinians would be herded into the wasteland of what was once Rafah. In the days leading up to Trump's trip to the Gulf, Netanyahu authorized a dramatic escalation of Israel's terror bombing of Gaza and began amassing troops along the stretches of Gaza. In the days leading up to Trump's trip to the Gulf, now we talked about that. On Friday, more than 90 Palestinians were killed and over 200 wounded in Israeli attacks, according to Gaza's health ministry. Nearly 3,000 Palestinians have been killed since Israel resumed its relentless assault on March 18th, with at least 250 killed in just the past 2 days. The ministry's Director General, Minir al-Barsh, described the attacks on the Strip as the most heinous massacres of ethnic cleansing. The Israeli military has issued mass displacement orders for Beit Lahia, Jabalia, and other northern areas, causing panicked families to flee their homes with no safe haven to go to. Whether you're in shelters, tents, buildings, evacuate to the south immediately, read leaflets dropped by the Israeli military over the areas. In northern Gaza, paramedic Mohammed Abu Luai reported over 15 airstrikes hitting densely populated residential zones, including Tal al-Zatar and Jabalia camp. Entire families remain trapped or missing under the rubble. Mahmoud Bazal, spokesman for Gaza Civil Defense, described the assault as a night of horrors of the Day of Judgment. He described Israeli forces intensifying indiscriminate bombings, striking inhabited homes without warning and targeting ambulance crews attempting to reach survivors, in a process known as double striking or double tapping, where they hit an area and then ambulances come and first responders come and people try to take people out of the rubble and they hit the people that are trying to take people out of the rubble. Hamas says zero progress has been made on the ceasefire, while Witkoff, according to Hamas, has promised the U.S. would facilitate the lifting of Israel's blockade on Gaza 2 days after Alexander's release. The U.S. appeared to completely abandon the agreement. On May 13th, the day after Hamas freed Alexander, Israel launched a massive series of airstrikes. Israeli officials have suggested that targeting Sinwar would soften Hamas's stance in negotiations, claiming that Qassam commander was enforcing a hard line. Hamas has not confirmed Sinwar's death, and Naim dismissed the idea that killing him would have any impact. I think this is part of the Israeli strategy, but it is proven that the strategy is failing for 17 months. They have killed Yahya Sinwar, they have killed Dave, they have killed Marwan Issa. They have killed a lot of leaders, and no one has witnessed a clear breakdown, not only in the negotiation, but also in the whole battle, the whole fighters, tactics, and strategies, Naim said. This is the other side of the story, is that the reason why you're not seeing a lot of Israeli soldiers die right now is because they're cowardly lobbing missiles, okay, from their planes against a defenseless population. But once the ground invasion starts, deaths are obviously also going to escalate. But you will see whether or not Hamas or any militant resistance group has the capacity to fight back. This is precisely what happened last time they invaded with boots on the ground. And even then, it doesn't matter, because before a single Israeli occupying force boot hits the ground, Israel pummels that ground into oblivion. Witkoff and Adam Baylor, the White House special envoy on hostages, held several meetings in Doha this week with Israeli negotiators as well as with regional mediators from Qatar and Egypt. While both U.S. officials publicly expressed optimism this week that a deal could be on the horizon, Naim said that there's been no progress. Zero, he said. Big zero. They returned back to talking about the Israeli proposal, or the Israeli Witkoff proposal, as if nothing happened during the last 1 or 2 weeks, including the release of Alexander, who was released within the context of direct talks with the Americans, Naim said. They're insisting on gradual or partial deals. They are talking about partial deals to release some of the prisoners for a temporary ceasefire, and then to go to war, to go for open negotiations without any commitment to end the war. And yes, in the process of this, last night, troops amassed at the border. Heavy reinforcement on the Gaza border tonight. This was last night. I covered this yesterday. Gearing up towards what is expected to be a brutal slaughterhouse-style invasion. They're gearing up for a massive ground operation. And that is precisely the reason why the bombing that took place, the bombings that have been taking place, looks exactly like the bombings that took place in the immediate aftermath of October 7, before the relentless bombing campaigns, before the ground invasion, because Israelis are cowards, okay? They are the most cowardly diaper brigade on the planet. The only enemy combatants that they can kill are children in cribs, okay? And even then, they do it by lobbing missiles from airplanes. That's it. This is why calling this a war is ridiculous. Israel is a belligerent occupier on the Gaza Strip. It's not a war when you get to control all of the supplies. It's not like state versus state violence. Okay? What? Holy shit. UN tariff news? And you tariff news? What? U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke by phone with Prime Minister Netanyahu and told him that the Trump administration is concerned about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. How is this any different than what Biden has been saying? So yeah, excuse me if my words actually frustrate you when I say Israel, okay? Israel. And anyone that defends Israel, okay? They are doing a live streamed Holocaust. And anyone, especially at this point, that still tries to defend any piece of this is a disgusting, repulsive monster. The picture of the swastika is Matt Walsh. We're going to talk about that later. Israeli news outlets reported Friday that no breakthroughs had occurred in Doha this week. Ynet reported that after 2 days of meetings, Witkoff has given up and is letting Israel make the decisions. The Times of Israel reported, in the face of Netanyahu's refusal to make any concessions, Witkoff has told other mediators that Washington doesn't plan to force Israel to end the war in Gaza. Now, what's absolutely unacceptable in this is unacceptable in this process is that Trump controls Israel, okay? The American government has unlimited power over Israel. Israel could not even defend itself for a second if it wasn't for American weapons, American targeting systems, American shields, American defense, American munitions, and the coalition that America has put together in the region to defend it. Okay? The idea that Israel be able to do a 7-front war and also simultaneously defend itself is ridiculous. They caught you talking shit about getting detained. Homeland Security says you lie for likes. The news are talking on how you were talking shit about getting detained. They said federal agents are denying this. That's a really interesting way to demonstrate that you have no critical thinking skills or you don't even know how to read what the news are saying. Yes, the Department of Homeland Security said I'm lying for likes about the way that I was detained or the reasons for my detainment, which of course they're going to say. They're the goddamn government. But even the Department of Homeland Security does not deny that I was detained at all. Are you stupid? Do you not understand how words work? Also, lying for likes is so funny. It's just like boomer shit. Yeah, I understand you talk shit to get attention. Brother, are you pro-Trump? Maybe you are. I don't know. Thoughts on the new nation of Balochistan? Any thoughts on the new nation of Balochistan? Do you think AI like Grok or ChatGPT are a reliable source of information when deep searching for unbiased news? You are the dumb people magnet? I know. If you are a stupid person, if you are one of the stupids, you most likely are going to have a deep, unexamined hatred for someone like myself. And you won't even know why you have this kind of hatred. You'll just kind of go along with it because other people, still no answer, like always, just talk shit. What? I already told you. The Department of Homeland Security did not say what you think it said, you moron. Even in that statement, they openly admit that the detention happened. What do you think we released them means? God, sometimes I'm just like trying to explain how words work. And it's so difficult for them to comprehend this. Oh, Asmongold's talking about this right now. That's why this dumbass came in here. I love it. Anytime Asmongold talks about me, some of the dumbest people on the planet click off of that stream come in here, click into this stream. What? There are rumors going around that you made up your airport detention after being on U.S. Chicago News. How do I deal with stupids of this magnitude? How do I deal with stupids of this magnitude? Yeah. Yes, I coordinated with the Department of Homeland Security to say that I was detained. That's what I did. Anyway, you have to consider that these Asman fans might literally be children. No, they're not. How many times have we actually clicked on their profile and they have accounts created in 2009? They are not children. They sound like children. And the reason why they sound like children is because they're mentally stunted, but they are absolutely adults. They either have accounts that they just created just now, a sock account because their original account got banned, or they have accounts that were created usually in like 2011. Are you the new Jussie Smollett? Yes, dude. I made up my detention and then I got the Department of Homeland Security to admit it because I'm in cahoots with the Trump administration. It doesn't even make sense. It does not make any sense. CBP, DHS should release the tapes if I'm going to call you a liar. Yeah, I mean, seriously. Great. It's just one of those situations where it's like, it's already addressed. He didn't know what a FOIA was and immediately went to Ask Grok. Brilliant stuff going on there. Oh my God. Yeah, they're not. I saw a 45-year-old disgusting fat incel watching Nazi gold on the train. They're not children. They're just infantile in their minds. Yeah. No, a lot of the people that watch Nazi gold are, 35 to 45 years old and repulsive. No, the claim is that you made up the questions and people dream up how the tapes will ruin you. Okay, I hope they release the tapes then. Except that's not the claim here. The claim is that it didn't happen. That's what they keep saying. Also, it's incredibly common now that this is happening to a lot more people. That's the reason why it's an important story, okay? That's the reason why so many people are covering this. Calling people Nazis who think differently from you is really helping your case, Jussie Smollett. No, I'm not calling them because they think differently from me. I'm calling them that because they support the Nazi state of Israel. Do you understand? And you might also be a Nazi if you agree with the current Trump administration's Nazi-style detention policies and anti-immigrant policies, while also simultaneously agreeing with the fascist state of Israel and their Nazi exterminationist policies. If that actually hurts your feelings, well, sorry, you got to have to work with it on your own, You got to work it out. That's it. Thank you for the PR, though. Also, yeah, they do support the neo-Nazi party of AFD. I have a domestic flight at the end of this month. No, domestic flights don't, you won't get that kind of questioning. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the news instead of whatever Nazi Gold is saying. And what his dumb Asman mold followers are saying. I think more people should be embarrassed to openly say that they're fans of Asman Mold, a guy who literally is living in his own rot. But unfortunately, we don't live in that society. You call me an idiot for me asking a question. Majority of the time I'm on your side, although there are some things I disagree with, but this pushes my thinking further to agreeing with your lack of accountability and humbleness. When people sum to you with valid questions or criticism, you just go straight to insults. Let's hear what the question was. You're no average Joe either, buddy. That historically promotes terrorism. Where was it, I wonder? Oh, can we get another daily Asman YouTube promo? I love this guy. I love this guy who's like, dude, I'm usually on your side, but you seemingly lack accountability. And then we look at his background, and it's literally him constantly coming in here to be like, dude, cover Asman Gold, cover Asman Gold, cover Asman Gold, cover Asman Gold. And then turning into, are you going to cover Asman Gold again? Are you going to promote his YouTube channel again? It's like, what a pathetic means of existence, dude. Do you not feel bad about the way you operate? Like, what the is, oh my God, you have a child too. Ay, ay, ay. Jesus Christ. These chatters are a part of the new soft right. Adopting the lib soft boy politics is funny for old heads. No, they're not. They're not soft right. They're hard right. Come on. There are soft right people that adopt the politics of the hard right while still maintaining this like I'm a centrist veneer. Okay, but this is not one of them. People who maintain these positions are through and through right wingers. I am glad that we looked at this though, because once again, I'm glad that we looked at this though, because like this guy went, I ask you reasonable questions and then you banned me or you called me stupid. And then I looked at his background and there is not even a single instance where he's asked a reasonable question. He is always antagonistic. Why do you think you can, like, is there any other Twitch streamer whose chat you can go into and literally consistently for months on end constantly hammer him over and over again? And then also, even when you get your wishes met, like you say, oh, dude, watch Asmongold's take on this. And then I do. And then you turn around and go, dumbass, you're always watching Asmongold. Do you know what would happen under normal circumstances to someone like yourself? You would get banned by like the third time you did this. You get permanently banned. And it's not the end of the world, by the way. You can still watch if you're permanently banned. You just wouldn't be able to chirp in here. This is the interaction that you desperately crave. And I give it to you. Go ask Asmongold why he doesn't know what the he's talking about and see how quickly you get perma-banned if you want to understand what lack of accountability looks like. How many instances has Asmongold been completely and entirely wrong on, especially as it pertains to politics? Yeah, go bring that up in his chat. He will immediately ban you. Of course, you're in agreement with him, or perhaps too utterly terrified to have any sort of reasonable discourse with a creator such as this one. So you just come in here and you chirp over and over and over again. You know what I mean? You just prove my point. I watch y'all simultaneously. I like the troll for sure, but to insult my character like that when you don't know me is crazy. I was specifically speaking on the question I just asked. Did Hasan cover that he's on the news and they might be pulling footage from the interview? Did you cover this already? I hope they do. That would be fantastic. What the f is this video?
A popular
Yeah, I have. I already covered this. The funniest thing is, they're going to, I don't even know if the DHS would release this footage, because if they do release the footage, it directly shows that I was 100% correct. Obviously, recall is not going to be 100%, but they would never release the full footage, because then it would prove that they're asking people, American citizens, whether they like Donald Trump or not. You think the Department of Homeland Security wants that kind of information out there, especially when they didn't actually mention it? Nazi Mold perma banned me for asking why students protesting was bad if they exercise their free speech right. Yeah, go ask him about his inconsistencies when it comes to free speech. Do you get anything back from the inquiry you submitted? I don't think so. No, I have not gotten anything back. The thing is, if the footage were ever to be released, especially if the full footage were to be released, I don't know if those things are recorded or not. I'm sure they are. Okay. By the way, yeah. Remember, Nazi Gold is not a Nazi. Elon unbanned a white supremacist. In air quotes, mildly right-leaning political commentator Nick Fuentes gets unbanned on Twitter. This is the guy that Ethan says is Trump-coded, but not fully on Trump's side, by the way. Yeah. You call everyone a Nazi. Yeah, mildly right-leaning political commentator Nick Fuentes, famous for denying the Holocaust, famous for saying white people and black people engaging in miscegenation is akin to white people breeding with animals. That's what he has said. An actual American neo-Nazi. At the time, I reached out to Asmongold when this came out, because we had a much better rapport, because he wasn't hiding behind his hug box while launching attacks and simultaneously refusing to ever talk to me directly. By the way, for the record, 100%, the moment that the role reversal takes place, Asmongold will gladly come in here, okay, and will try to have a conversation with me. The moment that the environment and the political environment and the attitude shifts in a way where a lot of these dumbasses that are currently hopped up on the pro-Trump shit turn around and go, maybe this was stupid. Maybe I should entertain some alternative perspectives here. Oh, Hasan is right there. And then that 30K to 40K dynamic shifts in the other direction, and I have more viewers than him. He will come back gladly here to try and have a conversation and will expect me to be charitable, as it has happened in the past over and over again. Trust me on this, okay? This is how it works for a lot of these people. The only thing they care about, and it's pure projection when they're like, Hasan's a grifter or he's audience captured or whatever. The only thing they give a shit about is, you know, doing this for clout or relevance or maintaining an audience. If there was an overwhelming sea of support for progressive values, Asmongold will slowly but shiftly change his perspective, massage the narrative until he was also resembling the progressive values. What is this? These people admit that they're lying? What is this?
You have to get global entry.
And then you get to go through the global entry line. Oh, wait. No, wait. You're right. Wait. Refresh. Refresh. Wait a second. Refresh.
Yeah. I'm trying to help you. Okay. You're such an asshole.
I'm not being an asshole. I'm just trust but verify. Okay, go ahead.
It's you. I'm trying to help. You shouldn't be verifying.
Go.
Allow the fake news to go.
8 hour to 9 hour. That is insane. That is actually insane. It's kind of wild that, like, this is just pure stalking shit. It's also been addressed by the main party that had no reason to say that they even detained me. They could have just lied about it and said that it didn't happen, you know? And yet, they're still doing this shit. You and Asman are the Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless of undisputed this political twitch streamers, the two sides of the same coin. Don't ever say some dumb shit like that. That basically only shows that this for you is nothing but drama. This is precisely, oh God, I'm done. I'm done entertaining this stupidity. And yes, that is stalking. Yeah, we're just two sides of the same coin. It's idiotic. This person doesn't know anything he's talking about and literally relies on ChatGPT. Come on, dude. Endless well of stupidity here. I'm sorry. Go watch Asmongold. Why are you watching me? God damn. Trump administration is working on plan to move 1 million Palestinians to Libya, by the way. Details are murky and no final agreement has been reached, but the plan is under serious enough consideration that the administration has discussed it with the Libyan leadership. The current Libyan leadership is in the pocket of Erdogan, by the way. This goes along with the same designs for the region that I was talking about. And this is, again, ethnic cleansing. The Trump administration is working on a plan to permanently relocate up to 1 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to Libya. 5 people were working knowledge of the effort, told NBC News. The plan is under serious enough consideration that the administration has discussed it with Libya's leadership. 2 people with direct knowledge of the plans, and a former U.S. official said. In exchange for the resettling of Palestinians, the administration would potentially release to Libya billions of dollars of funds that the U.S. froze more than a decade ago. No final agreement has been reached, and Israel has been kept informed of the administration's discussions. The State Department... Current Libyan president and prime minister fled Libya 3 days ago, by the way. The State Department and National Security Council did not respond to multiple requests for comment. The situation on the ground is untenable for such a plan. Such a plan was not discussed and makes no sense, the spokesperson said. Bassem Haim, a senior Hamas official, said that Hamas and the U.S. designated terror groups that has run Gaza was not aware of any discussions about moving Palestinians to Libya. Palestinians are very rooted in their homeland, very strongly committed to their homeland, and are ready to fight up until the end and sacrifice anything to defend their land, their homeland, their families, and the future of their children, Naim said. In response to questions from NBC News, Palestinians are exclusively the only party who have the right to decide for the Palestinians, including Gaza and Gazans, what to do and what not to do. Representatives of the Israeli government declined the comment. Libya has been plagued by instability and warring political factions throughout the nearly 14 years since the civil war broke out in the country and its longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi was toppled. That's a fun way to describe the events that unfolded. Libya is struggling to take care of its current population as 2 rival governments, one in the west, led by Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh, and the other in the east, led by Khalifa Haftar, are actively and violently fighting for control. The State Department currently advises Americans not to travel to Libya due to crime, terrorism, unexploded landmines, civil unrest, kidnapping, and armed conflict. Dbeibeh's government could not be reached for comment. Haftar's Libyan National Army did not respond to a request for comment. How many Palestinians in Gaza will voluntarily leave to live in Libya is an open question. One idea administration officials discuss is to provide Palestinians with financial incentives, such as free housing and even a stipend, a former U.S. official said. The details of when or how any plan to relocate Palestinians to Libya could be implemented are murky, and an effort to resettle up to 1 million people there would likely face significant obstacles. Such an effort would likely be extremely expensive, and it's not clear how the Trump administration would seek to pay for it. In the past, the administration said Arab nations would help with the rebuilding of Gaza. Yes, you are respected by many mainstream establishment media, no matter how many viewer Epstein or as Dumbfold has. Doesn't matter. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody's lining up on their door begging for an interview. You have institutional popularity, which is much more than Twitch numbers. I know you know that and agree. No, the question I have always for people like this that are fans of people like this is always like, do you think all these other adults in mainstream news and shit are just like duped? They're blinded. They haven't watched the appropriate number of YouTube videos. Is that what it is? Or perhaps they don't respect people like Asmongold who live in rot. Or they don't respect people like Ethan Klein who are very clearly unstable. Like, what do you think is going on here? If your perspective on someone like myself is so directly at odds with what the overwhelming number of adults believe, then don't you think you should, at the very least, entertain that you might have been duped? I'm not asking you to just like switch your worldview overnight. Okay? I'm not asking you to switch your view overnight. I have academics on this broadcast all the time. I have award-winning journalists on this broadcast all the time. Why the f do you think they come here? And also, why the f do you think what their output looks like is very close to what my output looks like? You know? Why? Do you think it's because they're all deluded? Do you think I'm paying all of them? Do you think there's this like mass conspiracy? Or do you think the alternative is that you might be getting things a little wrong? I love you, but the argument doesn't work when the majority of adults that the layman can hear are siding with Israel. That's not even true. That also isn't even true. A lot of the perspective that we have here that we see online is just incredibly dumb, incredibly ill-informed, and for the normal person in broad daylight would be seen as like the most repugnant thing anyone has ever said. This is what I tried to remind people when there was that Valentina Gomez chick who was running for Secretary of State. I forget in which state. And she was like constantly dropping the F slur, saying that like Muslim extremists deserve to be executed in the streets, or like gay people need to be killed, stuff like that in Missouri, right? And she gets a lot of clicks on Twitter, and everyone would look at her and point to her to be like, look at how dangerously radicalized the Republicans are. And it's true to a certain degree. There are a lot of Republicans who agree with that. And she got 7th place in Missouri. And at the time I said, if any person in Missouri, any person whatsoever, even if like right-wing Republican in Missouri was walking down the street and they heard Valentina Gomez say those things, you know, dropping the F slur, saying that gay people need to be killed and they're pedophiles, they would beat her ass. Okay? The idea that like what pops off on the internet, especially on Twitter, and now specifically on certain communities on Twitch or on certain or around certain communities on YouTube, the idea that like those attitudes are reflected in broader society is silly. Okay? Just like the entire scope of my perspective is not broadly reflected in society. But the difference, of course, is that I know that, right? Like, I don't think the average American is talking about the legitimacy for resisting against the state of Israel. The average American simply is just looking at this and going, it's really up that children are in bags and getting decapitated by like American munitions that Israel's using on them. That's up. We should stop that. That's the average position. Okay? That is the position of the average American. Theo Vaughn is a great example of this, yes. But if you were to watch all of these like slop tubers or whatever, you would think that the average American's position was insanely pro-Israel, like insanely pro-Israel. That's not reflected in broader society at all. The only place where you would see that level of support for the dangerous state of Israel would be Congress. Do you understand? That's also part of the reason why. When you look at likes and shit, even on TikTok, which is certainly a lot more democratic, even though there's a healthy dose of insane right-wing sentiment that pops off there as well, as opposed to Twitter or even Twitch. Very different attitude overall. Anyway, here is the back and forth that I had with Kyle Kalinske the other day.
30 in the
Oh, this is just the detainment part. Okay, never mind. If it's just the detainment, I'm not going to watch this. You guys have already heard me speak on this.
They're arresting judges already. They arrested the
we talked about a bunch of other stuff as well. He's going to post the rest of it too. Yeah. All right. We got that done. We covered that. U.S. investments.
To a Fox News alert right now, President.
Breaking. Trump confirms U.S.-Iran nuclear deal proposal.
Donald Trump is heading back to the United States after wrapping up his historic trip to the Middle East.
And the commander-in-chief breaking some...
I am going to get to the soy right as well. Don't worry. Oh, yeah. The world can always get worse, but this kind of horrifying plan most likely will not come to pass. If it does, the Libyan government in Tripoli would be signing what amounts to its death warrant in the eyes of the country's people. When Libya's foreign minister in 2023 was revealed to have spoken to the Israeli foreign minister once, there was such concern for her safety in that climate that she was forced to flee the country. This did not happen with the foreign ministers of the UAE or Bahrain.
Some news while flying home on board Air Force One, revealing the U.S. has given Iran a proposal for a nuclear deal.
Okay, here we go. Lucas Thomason joins us from Abu Dhabi with the latest. Lucas, what do we know about the deal?
Well, Lawrence, that's right. President Trump making news aboard Air Force One, departing the United Arab Emirates moments ago, concluding his three-nation swing here in the Middle East. The president is confirming that the U.S. has given Iran a proposal for a nuclear deal. We still don't know the details of that, but here's the quote from the president moments ago. He said, they have a proposal, speaking about Iran, but more importantly, they know they have to move quickly or something bad is going to happen. And part of that bad going to happen is right here in the United Arab Emirates, where the United States keeps some of its fast movers, F-15s, F-16s. But let's talk about the good news this trip. Commerce, not conflict. That's been the president's theme, and we have the receipts right here. Saudi Arabia, first stop on this trip, pledging over $600 billion in U.S. investment. Qataris pledging $243.5 billion, as well as that 747 and freeing Edan Alexander. And right here in Abu Dhabi, the UAE capital, the Emiratis are pledging $200 billion in commercial deals. And they also said that's going to go to $1.4 trillion over the next decade. And let's not forget the captains of industry, the business leaders that have come here to the Middle East. They didn't have to. And last night, UAE's foreign minister sat down with their own Brett Baer about what the president's visit meant to his country.
We've been investing in the United States for decades, but now we're taking it one step further, not only in terms of size, but in terms of trust. And we're grateful for President Trump for that.
After arriving...
They're not mad about Trump Muslim ban or Steve Miller in the administration? That's so funny. Dude, listen, I don't know if you know this, but they don't even give a shit that Israel is currently doing an ethnic cleansing campaign. No, they don't give a fuck, dude. They're rich as hell. The people in these places do care, but these guys don't. You need to understand, these are monarchs through and through. We're talking about monarchs, okay? They're kings. And no, the kings don't care when they're happy to continue getting money, funds, weapons from the American king, Donald Trump. If anything, they like Trump more than previous administrations, because at least previous Western administrations would at least present themselves as though they were above. There is this this elitist mentality that prior administrations demonstrated over and over again that this one does not. This one openly flaunts its monarchy style structure. This is exactly the type of guy that these dudes know how to deal with and deal with very well.
Yesterday in the UAE capital, Trump touring the Grand Mosque with his shoes on, the president of UAE closing the mosque for the first time ever, guys. Now, there are other international issues looming. Of course, it's Iran. Last night on Hannity, Secretary of State Marco Rubio talked to Sean about Iran, not far from where I'm standing, about a potential deal of its nuclear program.
He says this offer won't be around forever. And what he means by that is at some point, decisions will have to be made about more maximum pressure and other options, because Iran can never have a nuclear weapon.
So it's really Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirming to Sean Hannity that that offer had been proposed, saying this offer won't be around forever. Now, here's the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, lit up in the stars and stripes, a symbol of unity and solidarity. One more image, Trump earlier today visiting the Abrahamic House in that's home.
I'm not seeing a lot of talk about how the U.S.-Iran nuclear proposal is happening. Yeah, I don't know why this is. Here is the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran has not received any written proposal from the United States, whether directly or indirectly. In the meantime, the messaging we and the world continue to receive is confusing and contradictory. Iran nonetheless remains determined and straightforward. Respect our rights and terminate your sanctions, and we have a deal. Mark my words, there is no scenario in which Iran abandons its hard-earned right to enrichment for peaceful purposes, a right afforded to all other NPT signatories too. The great Iranian nation has shown its power and fortitude in the face of those who have attempted imposition. We always welcome dialogue based on mutual respect and always reject any diktat. And the question you asked is it appropriate to wear shoes in a mosque? No, it is inappropriate to wear shoes in a mosque, chatter.
To a church, synagogue, and mosque, which speaks to the tolerance of this country, including co-ed gyms here at the hotel. A different story, though, across the Persian Gulf in Iran. Here's President Trump earlier from UAE.
$5 billion trade surplus for the U.S. last year, making us the third largest in the world. And
I should have left yesterday, but I couldn't disappoint you. Your father would have been extremely upset with me, and you would have been more upset.
He would have understood, sir.
We had such a beautiful evening, and they planned it so beautifully. I said, I'm going to have to wait just a little bit. But the way we were treated by your family, the way we were treated by Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and others has just been so I'm very proud to be representing the United States of America. And thank you all for being here. And media, thank you very much. You've been very fair. Thank you very much.
Like it's so funny. It's like claiming that you arrived at a deal with Russia, okay, because you went on a tour and you got hyped up from Estonia and Poland. Like, that is the analog here. Claiming that you have facilitated and secured a deal with Iran, a denuclearization agreement with Iran, when you haven't talked to Iran and you've went to the UAE and Saudi Arabia especially directly in conflict with Iran until recently, as a matter of fact, is like saying, oh, I went to Poland and, Russia is going to finally do a ceasefire. We did it. We went to Estonia. We went to Poland. We went to Finland. He's just lying. What the fuck? Or I guess they're playing fast and loose. They're trying to dupe you. We got clickbaited. Trump confirms U.S.-Iran nuclear deal proposal, as in there's going to be a proposal at the table. They haven't even brought it to Iran at all.
So the president there talking about the full diplomatic and military honors he's received, not only here in the United Arab Emirates, but also in Saudi Arabia and in Qatar. We remember the F-15s escorting Air Force One not only to Saudi Arabia, but again to Qatar, and then respectively from their countries here, United Arab Emirates. And we just saw fighter jets escorting Air Force One out of the UAE, but full diplomatic and military honors, full pomp and circumstance wherever the president goes, bestowing honors, that very rare honors that these leaders could muster and have ever given out. And no question, the success, the business success, commerce, not conflict, that's been the theme of this trip as the president wraps up his first official overseas trip.
You're watching Fox News, brother? No, it's important to watch Fox News. Again, watching Fox News is important. Sometimes even watching Asmongold is important. And the reason for why is because these guys, whether we like it or not, are speaking to millions of people. And millions of people are just that stupid. And it's important to get where they're getting their notes from. It's important to understand what kind of talking points you're going to see out in the wild. This is where those talking points are materializing.
since beginning his second term here, not only to the United Arab Emirates, but also Saudi Arabia and Qatar, guys.
It's incredible. What a great trip. Thank you so much, Lucas. You get to come home soon. Look at this. This is the cover of the New York Post this morning. It says, "Shake it up." And in this little box, it says, President Trump announced nearly $2 trillion in deals with Mideast countries, lifted sanctions on Syria, pushed for a new Iran deal, an onslaught that left some former Biden officials jealous. Quote, "It's amazing what can be accomplished when the president isn't brain dead," one said.
And the breakdown is just extensive. When you look at $200 billion plus in commercial deals between the U.S. and the UAE. Then you got $243 billion in economic deals between the U.S. and Qatar. And then you got $600 billion committed from Saudi Arabia to invest in the United States. And one thing that they're doing differently that they did the last time is they're making sure it's happening in the 4-year period. The president is aware of what happened the last time where he got out of office and then people didn't keep their commitments.
Of course, the Palantir CEO went on a trip with Trump, and so did Elon Musk. They also want to force American security contracts into these countries. They want Palantir to be working within these countries so they're easily traced, so they can surveil these nations better. And in the short term, it's beneficial for Saudi Arabia to have Palantir because they think, oh, we'll just use Palantir against political dissidents in the country and easily stop them from gaining momentum. What they fail to recognize is that that is a way for America to have a backdoor into all surveillance in the country, even more than they currently do. That's it. And the same goes for Elon Musk. They want Starlink to be everywhere. Why do they want Starlink to be everywhere? I think the reason why they want Starlink to be everywhere is so that they can have broad surveillance capabilities all around the planet. Okay, Starlink is, make no mistake, a defense contractor. Your ISPs have incredible amounts of data that they're collecting from you. Okay, incredible amounts. Data that you can't actually hide with a VPN even. Starlink is an internet service provider in that regard. This is the United States of America's role in implementing mass surveillance around the planet.
Get the ink there dry and say, hey, you got to do this timely and very quickly.
And Brian, look at that. That's what he accomplished in a matter of a few days. That's jobs. When I see that, I see all these deals. Those are jobs here in America.
Right. And they are going to build. They're looking to get a lot of power because they want to develop AI. And with them, they had the who's who of AI executives with them, from Elon Musk to Sam Altman, really conducted by David Sachs, who's well connected in the area. And they have a lot of defense contracts. I thought it was fascinating in Saudi Arabia. They're going to spend, they want $600 billion worth of defense, and they're spending the contracts across various companies to make sure they get it. So I just wonder if that helps Secretary Hegsted's budget. So if he's trying to get $1 trillion, okay, but if he's selling a lot of it, shouldn't those profits go to, I don't know, maybe allowing them to work it against the invoices? Right. You know, in order to get that $1 trillion, you sell off, you could make a profit from this at the same time. We build up our defense. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio is making it clear, I want all our allies to start spending 5%, including 5% of their budget on military spending. Smart. So he wants our allies to step up. He wants our tech center.
These countries are always U.S. adjacent, but Trump somehow always pulls the leash better than the Democrats. Yeah, but not in a way that is like going against the previous administration's goals in the region. It's just in a way that it advances America's interests in the region, which are death and destruction. Like that's it. It's not, he didn't do anything unique. You guys understand that, right? Like the things that he did unique were uniquely corrupt and cutting out the middleman in terms of like setting side deals for American corporations. Instead, he just like lined his own personal pockets in a very obvious way, in a way that like people understand, people recognize as pure, transparent graft. Having said that, it's not like he snubbed Israel by not going to Israel in his Middle Eastern tour. And that pissed off a lot of arrogant, entitled Israeli leaders. Having said that, it's not like he reined Israel in. It's not like he told Israel, you're done, cut it out. No, not at all. He simply said, people in Gaza are starving. That's it. Imagine that. People in Gaza are starving. That's all you get. That's okay. That's a little bit better than Biden, I guess. But who knows? Maybe if Biden's brain was still working by this point, he might have said something like this too, you know? Like, this is some Kamala Harris shit. Hasan Reactions, one of the best ones in the React channel.